emotionally and mentally draining at the same time. Pardon me for all the background noises the boys are making. Okay, so coming back, um, I took injectables about closely about 17 days, and I was able to grow about um, 16 follicles, which was a good number. And then, very interestingly, the doctor put me on an injection to stop the growth and that was so good. That was mentally relaxing because every time I would go in for an IUI cycle or any other cycle, I would have to, really be accurate with my egg release time, because sometimes when you're injected with UCOG, your egg size grows tremendously, and or sometimes when you get delayed for a release shot, a UCOG shot, that's also when your follicle increases multifold. So the good part was that I had the accurate size of the follicles. I had about 16 follicles, and they injected me to stop the growth there and then. And they said, okay, come back in 2 days. And I said, you sure they're not going to grow in 2 days? They said, no, they're not going to grow in 2 days. Take this injection and you will be fine. And I said, all right, sounds good to me. And I came back after 2 days, and they decided to do the transfer. They decided to kind of take out the follicles from my body, and I initially, when I went to the doctor, I asked them, are you going to put me under the knife, or are you going to cut me to take out the follicles? They said, no, we don't have to do that at all. We just suck the follicles out of your uterus, out of your ovaries. And I said, okay, that's not too bad. And I asked the doctor that while you're doing that, am I going to feel that thing happening to me? Is it going to be painful? She said, no, we are going to put you under general anesthesia, and that too is just going to be for a little. That's not exactly general anesthesia, but something like a, you know, they just kind of, it's like an anesthesia, but you're unconscious. It's not really a general anesthesia or anything. They just kind of inject you and you're unconscious for some time. It's sedation, yeah, yeah. It was something like sedation, right? So I was called in and I was sedated, and those follicles were sucked out of the ovaries, and I think the entire procedure just took about half an hour's time, and they were a qualified team of doctors there doing that, and there was a qualified team of anesthetists doing that to make sure the patient does not have any problem with the sedation. So the follicles were retrieved, and I was asked to rest for a few hours and then go back home. And that's when we met the embryologist, and we asked them, okay, how is it going to work? What do you do, etc., etc. So she explained the entire process to us. She said, okay, we are going to look for the best follicles that have survived the extraction process, and we're going to freeze them, or we're going to kind of fertilize and then freeze them. So that was the plan of action, that they're going to fertilize, and whenever follicles survive the fertilization and kind of get converted into embryos, they're going to freeze those embryos for later transfer to the ovaries. The extraction happened. We decided to meet the embryologist to understand that how is it going to be going forward. So the embryologist was a wonderful doctor lady, and she said that they're going to find out which follicles are the best for fertilization. They will be fertilizing the best follicles, and the fertilized ones will be cryopreserved. They'll be kind of they will be frozen, and eventually, whenever my body is ready to take that, they're going to kind of insert that back into my uterus, and then we will see how it goes from there. So the role of an embryologist is very, very important. So if you're planning to go in for an IVF, just make sure that you kind of go to the best embryologist, because you might have a good doctor, but if you don't have a good embryologist, you may not have the right embryo being transplanted back to your body. So we were quite contented after meeting the embryologist, and we asked the doctor if we are going to do the transfer in the same cycle, which she said no, because my endometrium had already gone very, very thick. She said, okay, we are going to wait for your next cycle to start, and then we will prepare your body, and then we will accordingly transfer the fertilized embryos back into your body and see how it goes from there. So all during this procedure of preparing the body and preparing the follicles, I would have taken a lot of injections. I would probably have been taking about 45 injections every day for a period of about 20 days. A little more than 20 days perhaps, but uh, those injections were not painful at all. They were absolutely not painful at all. And they were pretty easy. Some of them were required your doctor to give you those injections, which I had a wonderful doctor friend helping me at that moment. And some of them were very small needle that could, and they were like a pen needle that you could just simply inject into your abdomen. You could just pinch your stomach and just press that, and that adequate amount of the hormone gets inserted or gets injected into your body. So those were not difficult at all, I can tell you. Those injections were easy. But yes, if you're somebody who is kind of injection phobic, you will have to kind of mentally prepare yourself for that. I was injection phobic at one point in time when I started with all these treatments, but then I realized that okay, if I have a strong mind, my body is not going to feel the pain. And it's just a second, it's just a momentary pain that your body's going to feel. Obviously, I do feel the pain, but it's just a very short momentary pain, and thereafter it's all right. I mean, as long as I'm getting the results, I'm happy with it. So 1 month the extraction of the follicles happened, and the subsequent month I went back to the clinic, and I was some tests were again performed on me, and I was asked to take certain sets of medications to ensure that my body is ready to receive the fertilized eggs. So out of the 16 follicles that were retrieved, eventually 8 survived, and 8 were found to be of good quality. Out of those 8, 5 of them, or maybe perhaps 6 of them, fertilized. And after they were fertilized, on the day 2, my doctor called me again. She said, "We want you to go in for a blastocyst." Blastocyst is nothing but allowing that particular embryo to go on till day 5, right? A lot of embryos don't make it to day 5. So obviously, if you are not going in for blastocyst, your chances of that embryo um, surviving day 5 is kind of 50-50. So obviously, going in for blastocyst means that you end up spending more money, but that was okay, because we just wanted to be sure that we are having the best quality embryos go inside the body. A lot of times, when this entire process is being performed, doctors realize that the embryo quality is not good enough to survive in the body. That's when they decide, they will guide you on a different course of action. So eventually we had, after all the procedures and after 5 days of waiting for those embryos to be fertilized, we were able to get 2 little blastocysts, which at that moment I felt, oh my god, if it doesn't work, means I have to go through the cycle again. Because if you are able to retain more blastocysts, if you have more blastocyst embryos, then it definitely means that if it doesn't work for any goddamn reason, that at least the next cycle you don't have to go through the hormones again, that you can just go through the transfer procedure. Well, two good quality embryos survived, and that was still a lot of hope for us at that point in time. I was very positive at that point in time. I decided to kind of mentally get out of this whole depressive phase and pep up myself and feel positive. And I would work out and go to a gym, and possibly did everything to make myself feel good. And I really wanted it to work, because I know that somewhere when you're very positive about things, they do work. Well, this positivity did not survive very long. I will tell you how. So the body was all prepared for the follicle or the embryo transfer, and a couple of tests were done a day prior to the transfer. So I went in the next morning, and I was again sedated. Sorry, I was not sedated. Please pardon me on that. I was taken into the operation theater, and the catheter it was again like an IUI. Another catheter was put into my body, and I could see it on the screen, and while the ultrasound was being simultaneously performed, I could see that the catheter is being put inside, and the doctor told me, okay, we are now injecting the 2 little blastocysts into your endometrium layer, and all the best from there on. And I was just like, they showed me a little silver lining, a little silver dot. I could see a silver dot on the screen as it went inside, and I said, is that the embryo? She says, no, this is like a kind of a highlighter that we leave at the end of the embryo, so we know that the embryo has got, ejected into the uterus. Okay, great it was, and I was so happy after the entire process, and I immediately stood up and I said, okay, and the doctor said, okay, you don't have to stand up for that long, just sit on a wheelchair and go back to your resting room, rest for about 2-3 hours, and then we let you go and we'll see what happens, and all the best to you. I said, okay, wonderful, you have done such good to me. And okay, so after resting, I came down from the resting area, and the doctor told me that your test reports have come, everything looks good, but you have extremely low progesterone levels. And I thought, what the hell was that? Because through all these cycles that I underwent, no doctor, no gynecologist bothered checking me on the progesterone levels. And I asked her, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's not going to work out? She said, we don't know. Sometimes it does work out, but progesterone has an important role in the implantation of the embryo. And the moment I heard that, I was like super, super depressed. I just felt it was the end of the world for me. It's not going to work for me at all. She said, okay, don't take it that way. Maybe it's going to work for you. Come back on the 14th day and we'll see how it's gone. And I came out of the doctor's room, and I asked another lady who had the same procedure done on the same day, and I asked her, what is your progesterone levels? She said, no, they're pretty good. And I said, oh, okay, then it's going to work for you. It won't work for me. And I was like this super depressed for the next 13 days. And I was kind of dying with anxiety. My family could feel that I'm really going into a great deal of depression. We had spent so much money into the IVF cycle. I had taken innumerable amount of injections, and I knew it was kind of like a dead end for me. I was sure that I didn't have the mental courage to go through this all over again. But what made it really worse was the progesterone shots that I was put on a bit later. So a bit later, the doctor said, okay, it's okay if your body doesn't have enough progesterone. We're going to put you on oral progesterone. You have to take it in other ways, and you will be injected with progesterone. So I was taking a progesterone injection every alternate day on my hip. It was so freaking painful that I could barely walk for at least a day. I could barely walk, or I could barely sleep on that side. I just felt my bottom down was completely impaired, and I would just howl with pain. And progesterone injections also make you feel very emotionally disrupted, that I read later. So anyway, so I was on those progesterone injections. I was taking it orally, I was taking it in other forms, and we kept going back to the clinic to get the levels checked, and we just found that they were increasing very, very slowly. So the doctor was not happy about it. So there were very little chances of the cycle being a success, and that was a time when I lost all hope. And I thought, it's going to be end of it. If it's not going to work this time, I don't know what I'm going to do next. But my family was extremely supportive. My husband was very supportive, and he said, okay, if it doesn't work this time, we'll go in for surrogacy next time. But if you really want a child, we'll keep trying. Don't give up. It doesn't matter how much money we've spent. It doesn't matter how much injections you've taken. If it works this time, good enough. If it doesn't work, don't feel disheartened. That's not the end of the world. I kind of spent the next 13 days praying, morning, evening, night. Was not able to sleep, was under tremendous pressure, tremendous amount of anxiety, and a lot of pain, and freaking lot of pain because of those progesterone injections. And I even had 103 temperature at one point in time. I came back from office and I was running fever. It was so high. And the next day I called my doctor and said, I don't think these injections are working for me, or I'm possibly allergic. The reason why progesterone shots are so painful is because they're oil-based, and they're like sustained release. Once they're injected, they will gradually release into your body. And definitely when you're being given oil into your muscles, that's going to hurt you for some time. So she said, okay, stop taking it. We'll just put it. We'll just take it orally in other forms. And I said, okay. And the moment they would stop, I was so relieved because, I was not having fever and that the pain stopped. So it was still better. But the amount of anxiety, the amount of tension, the amount of stress that I was dealing with in those certain days, I would just come home and cry every day, and I would kind of think to myself, it's not going to work because I don't have the right hormones, I don't have the right hormonal levels, and I'm not positive at the moment, and I don't think it's going to work. I kind of read every freaking post that was available on the internet about IVF experiences, and including the fact that if you cry a lot, is it successful or not? So, and finally, on the 13th night, I came back from office and I said, okay, I'm going to put an end to this anxiety and I'm going to just live with whatever is coming up next. And I'm going to take a urine pregnancy test at home and see how it works. And that was probably the last strip that I had. I had bought a box of strip that I had been continuously trying, kind of testing with all this while, and thought maybe someday it's going to show up the red line. It had never shown the red line in my case, so every time I would just use it, I would feel totally frustrated at myself. So eventually, when I took the test, and I was like, to my utter astonishment, I had a red line. I was like this, oh my goodness, and I just practically cried for 20 minutes after undergoing that test, and I just cried and cried and cried, and then I WhatsApped the picture of that strip to my mother, and I said, you know, something seems to be wrong, probably they gave me a lot of hormones, and that's the reason that's coming up in this test. And she immediately called the specialist, and she said, no, we're not giving any sort of injections or any medication that should bring up the red line. So that means she has conceived. And so that's the news I got back, and my husband came home and I shared the news with him, and he was very calm about it. He just said, okay, let's just get you tested before we should be celebrating. But I was I was in a state of utter shock, or I would say I was just not ready to agree that it had worked in my case, because all this time I had been thinking it's not going to work. It's not going to work because I don't have the right hormone levels. I cannot really explain in words how hard it was at that point in time. It just cannot be explained in words, and how many tears I would have wept, and how stressed out and how depressed I would have felt at that time. For if that had not worked, things would have been really worse for me. But it did work, and the next day we went back to the fertility clinic, and they performed the first ultrasounds, and we saw the two beautiful embryos implanted in the uterus, and that was a moment of belief for me. That was a moment of joy, absolute joy for me. And I can tell you that if it takes a little pain to get there, I would say it's worth it. And if it takes you a little bit more cycles to get there, it's worth it. So that was a little bit, and that was all about my IVF story, my IVF journey. So in the very first cycle, with the right kind of assistance, a great team of doctors, and a wonderful embryologist who knew her job so well, and a doctor who had a wonderful hand, we made it possible. We made it possible, yes. There's one more thing I'd like to tell you, that a few of the ladies that I spoke to who were undergoing the IVF process along with me, not all of them felt the pain through the progesterone injections. I remember talking to a few, and they said they had no pain at all. So as I said in the beginning, it's purely my experiences, and every body is different from the other. Yes, there are other variations, then there are more variants available. You don't really have to take an injection if it's very painful. But yes, it does increase your chance of containing and holding the baby. I took progesterone injections technically every once a week thereafter till my delivery, and they were painful, but it was okay. I was so happy that I thought, okay, I'm okay to bear a little pain to make it work. And every time I would get a prick of that injection or any other injection, I would tell myself I'm just getting closer to my goal and I shouldn't feel the pain at all. So I took on that aspect very positively. I think what really went wrong is the progesterone level, which eventually the medication was able to take care of. And I think More than everything else, and obviously a good team, your prayers also work. So positivity and being very positive and praying continuously for it that it works, and you get over this ordeal is very, very important. And I'm going to show you how the fruits of my hard labor look like. Okay, so meet the handsome gentleman number one. This is twin baby one, Rianch. Yeah? Would you like to say hello? Hmm? He's 8.5 months old, and he loves to be around his father, and he loves to blow lots of kisses. Yeah? Say hello. Okay, hello Rianch. Hello Rianch. How do you do, young man? How do you do? Good boy. Okay, so let me introduce you to my twin baby number two. Okay, this young and handsome gentleman is Kian. This little gentleman is super sweet, gives a beautiful smile, and just loves to be around his mommy. He's super excited to be in the front of the camera, as you can see him at the moment. Hey, yay. Okay, here you go. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Well, this is all about my fertility and my IVF story. I hope that all the information I would have shared, that I've shared, would be useful in some or the other way to you. If it makes you feel hopeful or encouraged in any way, I think my job is well done. I can just tell you at the end of it that my prayers were answered, and so shall be yours. And the fruits of the labor are so rewarding that, you know, all the stress and all the pain that I possibly took prior has been all washed out. And sorry, I have the baby here who's just kind of having fun around. You can hear those songs. Being a mother is absolutely a rewarding experience, and that's one experience that technically every woman looks up to. But if for some odd reason, you know, you are not able to be a mother, it doesn't make you any less of a woman. We are still as precious as we are, because before a mother, we are a woman, we are a girl. So that doesn't make you any less of a woman. And it's going to be hard if it doesn't work for you. Certainly it's going to be very, very hard, but eventually you will find something that you're equally passionate about and you would love to do. I have known women who've not had babies and who've not had children, not had a family, but were very, very successful in their careers. So for every one of us, there's definitely something to look up to. But at the end of the day, it's all about your prayers being answered and your efforts, being rewarded. And whether or not, I'm sure God has some great plans for each one of us. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, or suggestions, please post them in the comments box below. You can also send me an email, and I will certainly get back to you shortly. I'm also going to leave a link below about the IVF fertility clinic where I took my treatment. And if you are considering an IVF treatment shortly, maybe you can just check this out. It kind of provides service to patients across the world. And also let me know what is the next thing that you would want me to talk about. Possibly in the next video, I'm going to talk about a few tips that I think is going to help you in your IVF cycle. Thank you for watching, and you all have a wonderful day ahead. And this little monkey is going to say goodbye to all the friends around. Say bye-bye. What are you holding? Say bye-bye. Want to give baby a smile? Please give a smile. Okay. Bye everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye. Mama loves you. He's in a slightly bad mood, just cried because he was away from me for about an hour. So have a great day, guys, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Take care. Bye.